it's Jack from Cultaholic.com back again with a second news video of the day. We already have one out earlier on the channel which covers various big news stories such as, for example, Matt Hardy's terrifying incident at All Out, but also we've got more big news stories to talk about in this video. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at those headlines. First of all, a former Mae Young Classic competitor has revealed a controversial WWE practice. Next up, Matt Sydal has commented on his botch at All Out. And finally, Chris Jericho reflects on his feud with Orange Cassidy. So first of all, yes, quite a controversial story, as former Mae Young Classic competitor Sage Beckett, who also wrestled in TNA under a different name, under Rosie Lottalove, responded to a tweet by Maria Kanellis, and it all looks pretty controversial, especially if you're using it to criticize WWE, because what they've done here is kind of not very nice. So Maria is talking about just general power structures in wrestling, and then a bit more specifically WWE. She said on Twitter, so much in wrestling, wait, there's a comma there, so much in wrestling is in the shadows. Fear and abuse of power is their main control mechanism. If WWE fires a woman 2 months postpartum, what wouldn't they do? Well, Sage Beckett quote retweeted this and then explained basically, or implied, this is what had happened to her. Or hire you during the evolution of women's wrestling. After you've already lost 130 pounds over the last 2 years, then do weekly weigh-ins with you because you need to lose more weight to be marketable and release you on International Women's Day. So obviously the key thing there is the weigh-ins. That seems a bit odd, doesn't it? Especially because I can't imagine that, guys on the men's roster, especially those who wrestle in a more heavyweight style, would be subject to regular weigh-ins. WWE have talked recently about how not everybody needs to look the same, specifically in women's wrestling. It's time to evolve, it's time to showcase many different body types and that sort of thing. So this seems totally off-brand. In her tweet, Sage Beckett also tagged former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang, who recently took aim at Vince McMahon and WWE's labor practices. I mean, this is just another follow-on, isn't it? This is one more thing to kind of hold against WWE right now. There's been various different controversial things in the past few days. The Twitch thing, where they don't want their own wrestlers having personal Twitch streams, despite them not being employees, despite them being independent contractors, allegedly. There was the whole thing about WWE owning certain wrestlers' birth names as well. And now there's this, the fact that Sage Beckett, and presumably other women as well, but I don't know, were subjected to weekly weigh-ins to encourage them, or to pressure them, I suppose, into losing more weight. And look, I understand that, wrestling's a cosmetic business and all that sort of thing, and your look is part of your presentation, your persona, it's part of you being a wrestler. However, who out there is saying that all wrestlers need to look the same? Who's saying that all women wrestlers need to be, very, very slim and a certain body type, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. No, we've seen women's wrestlers of a far bigger stature do really, really good things. So I don't understand why WWE would be so unaccepting of this. Well, I do kind of understand, because as we know, all power in WWE comes from the top, and often the top is very inconsistent, often not remembering their own policies week on week. I mean, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but you know what I'm getting at here. Next up, there was a pretty terrifying moment. Well, there was lots of terrifying moments at All Out this past weekend. It was an unfortunate show for AEW, and you could also criticize them as well for allowing Matt Hardy to continue his match despite being apparently knocked out after suffering that terrifying fall from the scissor lift. But it wasn't the only terrifying moment of the show. There was, of course, Darby Allin's bump. He is apparently fine, where he was put in a body bag with thumbtacks by Brian Cage and thrown over the top rope, just totally blind, onto the ramp. That looked very nasty. And also, there was Matt Sydal, formerly known in WWE, of course, as Evan Bourne. Sydal was the 21st entrant, the surprise Joker entrant in the Casino Battle Royale. He headed straight out to the top rope, looking for a shooting star press, and then slipped. Now, obviously, the most important thing is whether or not Matt Sydal is fine. He seems to be fine. He landed on his back rather than his head, which is good. He was able to continue the rest of the match. He was in the final 3, I believe, so he had quite a little way left to go, and he seemed fine while doing it. But it was a shame for him that his first big move, his first big moment, resulted in a botch. That mistake has been attributed to humidity and potential moisture on the top turnbuckle, causing him to lose his footing. But whichever way you look at it, it was a scary moment. Well, Sydal has taken to Twitter to comment on this botch, saying, slipping was bonkers, in all capitals, so you know he's serious. That was a first, and hopefully a last. Thank you all for the kind messages and check-ins. I'm beyond honoured to be part of AEW's All Out. So no word yet on whether Sydal will be a regular or whether this was just a one-off appearance, but I don't think we can hold this mistake against him, can we? Like, if AEW were thinking, yeah, we might sign Matt Sydal, I don't think they're going to change their mind because of one Botch shooting star press when he's got so many other good attributes to his game. Sydal also followed this up by saying, I think that was a sign, that being the Botch, I suppose, I'll be using all new material next time. Could next time mean next time in AEW or just next time we see him set foot in a wrestling ring? I'm not quite certain. Stay tuned in to see what I'm saying. And then 3 eye emojis because, of course, he's got the third eye. You can see So yeah, it was a shame for Sydal to mess up the move. However, he did get a big reaction when he came out, didn't he, as the 21st entrant. So hopefully, the next time he sets foot in the ring, well, hopefully this new stuff is impressive and cool and we enjoy it, but also hopefully he can put that behind him and continue to remind us why he's been a prominent fixture in North American wrestling for the better part of, what, a decade now? Next up, let's go to the Twitter of Giovanna Angle, Kurt Angle's wife, who recently revealed which WWE superstar, or should I say former WWE superstar, Angle really wanted a match with upon his return to the company. When Angle did return, of course, he took part in a couple of very prominent matches, most notably probably the tag team match with Ronda Rousey against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon at WrestleMania. His retirement match also drew headlines, perhaps for the wrong reasons because it was against Baron Corbin, and while the logic is there of getting a newer star over by having them retire a legend, a lot of people wanted to see a career as glittering as Angle celebrated with a more relevant foe, maybe John Cena, for example. But according to Giovanna Angle, when Kurt returned to WWE, one of the first people he wanted to fight, one of the first people he wanted to fight, no, one of the first people he wanted to have a wrestling match with, and one of the first people he wanted to basically have a program with, one of the reasons he wanted to come back was Rusev. Matt Hardy was bigging up Rusev or Miro on Twitter, and Giovanna Angle tweeted in response to this saying, Kurt and I were just talking about Miro yesterday. He is, and still, the man. A true story, Kurt wanted Rusev to be his first match. One of the reasons why he wanted to go back. It's a tremendous shame that we didn't see it then, isn't it? Because, I mean, Kurt Angle versus Rusev seems like a great matchup on paper, and I'm pretty sure they both could have pulled an excellent match out of it. When Kurt first returned, I mean, he did decline, but he was still mobile. He could still wrestle a match. He could still wrestle a good match. He's Kurt Angle, for God's sake. So he can still put somebody over, make someone look good. Even when he'd only just returned to WWE as well, not long before his eventual retirement, he could still wrestle at a high level. And Rusev, of course, is excellent. The promos in the build-up, I assume, would have been hilarious. Yeah, it's one of those feuds that I'm really sad that we didn't get to see. But it's got me thinking as well, like, who else did Kurt Angle not get a chance to wrestle with upon his return a few years ago? And what matches did we miss out on, unfortunately? I don't know. I think it would be interesting, though. Who would you have most liked to have seen Angle wrestle? Let me know in the comments down below. Next up, Chris Jericho has been talking on his live stream about his recent feud with Orange Cassidy and also giving a little hint to what lies next in store for himself, for Chris Jericho. In fact, I probably shouldn't have referred to it as a feud there because Jericho corrected somebody, I think, who said that to him on the live stream, saying it wasn't a feud, it wasn't an angle, it wasn't a storyline, it was an experiment. Can we get Orange Cassidy to the next level and make him a main event draw in AEW? And we did that. Jericho went on to say, I knew that he had it in him, we just added a few different shades to him so he's a more well-rounded character, not just the lazy guy. Now he shows fire, shows some attitude, he can do a promo, he's a great babyface, he really is. And yeah, they did make Cassidy a more well-rounded character, but I took it as like Cassidy going to new lengths, actually, you know, trying like he did against Pac. But this time to a more angry degree because Jericho had annoyed him so much and taken the feud to such a new level. I don't know if I'd like to see Cassidy be so fiery all the time. I think it should still be something that is limited, something that just comes out of him when the situation calls for it. Anyway, Jericho goes on, like I said, 14 weeks, it was the summer of Orange, and it was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. Glad I got to do it. It was an honor. Who would I like to feud with next? There's a lot of people, actually. I know exactly who I'm going to be feuding with next, who my next story is. Once again, it's all about the stories, despite saying that it was an experiment, not a story. It doesn't matter. You'll find out on Wednesday. So basically, we're going to find out who Jericho's next big feud is this Wednesday. That was kind of the blow-off for Jericho and Orange for now. I'm sure we could always go back to it at some point. Yeah, I think it's the correct call to end the storyline there. A big definitive win for the babyface, the Mimosa Mayhem match and all that sort of stuff. Makes Cassidy look great. He's got a 2-1 victory over Chris Jericho. But Jericho doesn't lose anything from it because he's Chris Jericho. I'm excited to see who Jericho feuds with next. Hopefully, it's another kind of up-and-comer. I'd like to see him help establish somebody of a slightly smaller stature in AEW. But that, for now, is it for this news video. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below, and stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.